Hello, everybody. This is Shadow Valley. And for today's episode, let me start off with a story. It is September 2001. You are on your way to work and you stop to pick up the mail. You then proceed to go to your office and you sit down at your desk. And as you're opening the mail, you find a white powdery substance in one of them. You don't think anything of it at the time, and you just continue on with your day. And over the next few days, you begin to experience a lot of pain in your chest or just in your muscles. You begin to notice a lot of blisters, dark scabs, small bumps, or ulcers on your skin. You are running a fever, and you have this cough that just won't go away. Little did you know, when you opened that letter, you infected yourself with anthrax. And that little mistake right there of not seeking attention or raising a red flag right away is what ultimately cost you your life. And so what I'd really like to talk about today is the 2001 terror attacks just a week after 9/11. And these were done using anthrax in the mail. And so you had this guy or this individual. We'll get into that a little bit later about how the FBI claims they had one guy and they got the guy who was doing this. But you'll see as we go on to it, the evidence, the quote unquote evidence, is not necessarily consistent with what they are claiming. So what I'd like to kind of dive into first is just a general overview of what kind of happened. So for just some context, the anthrax attacks began just a week after the September 11th attacks. The attacks came in two waves. The first set of letters containing anthrax had a Trenton, New Jersey postmark dated September 18th, 2001. 5 letters are believed to have been mailed at this time to ABC News, CBS News, NBC News, and the New York Post, all located in New York City, not too far from the World Trade Center. It should also be known that there were several victims from these attacks. The first known victim is Robert Stevens. He worked at the Sun tabloid, and he ended up catching, well, not even just catching, he ended up receiving the letter, he opened it, got infected with anthrax, and when he ended up dying, the government didn't at first realize it was like a letter that he ended up getting, or traced it to that. They started claiming that he ended up catching anthrax just through the wild. He was just hiking, and they didn't really know much about him, but they just kind of assumed that he went out hiking or he went out somewhere in like the wilderness and ended up catching like anthrax that way.
Huh. Just to chime in real quick. This is Gabe, by the way. I was in the last episode, but forgive my ignorance. What is anthrax?
So anthrax is actually a bacteria, and like if left untreated with like antibiotics and whatnot, can cause some serious like issues. The thing about anthrax that's really interesting is bacteria can like multiply and do things outside of the cell, right? They can kind of live on a surface for X amount of hours, or sometimes some bacteria can live for days.
Right.
But with anthrax, in order to survive and to keep going and even to reproduce, it relies on actually killing people.
Oh, wow.
And so it's this super like virulent bacteria that can spread really quickly, and it kills really quickly as well. And that's how it reproduces. It just gets back into the environment and then goes out
Goes to
again.
another host. Okay.
Exactly.
So is it considered like a symbiotic relationship, or no? Because symbiotic you get from the host, right? It's like a give and take.
Right.
So what would is it just like a
It's a parasitic disease.
parasitic? Wow, spooky stuff, huh?
It's
So
miserable.
and how does it come in a powder? If it's like a, do they put it? I don't know if you know, but
Well, in this case, what they ended up finding out was the um, the powdery substance was synthesized from just a regular like anthrax thing. It was made in a lab.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
So it must have been several people. No way one guy can do this in a lab.
you would think so, right? According to the FBI, no. It was one person,
Yeah, right.
and they got him.
Yeah, right.
They straight up were like, "We got him, boys."
Yeah,
Yeah.
clowns.
We will we'll definitely dive into this because the whole thing is really interesting about how, you know, and in my opinion, allegedly, we'll say that way. I don't get in trouble. Allegedly.
Next thing you know, Brendan's going to be off the face of the planet.
I did not kill myself. Let's put that out there.
Yeah, now it's up out in the world, so now we know.
Yeah, if anything happens, it was the government. Yeah, no. But allegedly, they got the person. They figured it all out. They cracked the case. And, oh my gosh. You don't even know. There's some, like, real crazy crap in there. Like, nobody really knows about the anthrax attacks, or at least they've heard about them.
Well, it's probably so low profile because of 9/11 just recently happened, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm sure not many people really focused on like anything else but that one circumstance or the one instance, you know. Obviously it's super terrible what happened, and I don't know, it's like a perfect cover, you know, to just start murdering people.
It really was, actually. It was a really good cover, and a lot of people refer to it as the terrorist attack that got overshadowed by 9/11.
Yeah.
And I just think it's absolutely crazy because the 9/11 attacks, they all happened in like the same day.
Mm-hmm.
These attacks went over like the next couple of days, weeks.
Oh shit.
And it wasn't for, it took over, I want to say, in order for the FBI to even claim like this was the guy that they got, this all happened in 2001. Let's know. They started claiming they got the guy in 2008.
Okay.
And so the FBI, for about
7 years later. Wow.
had no idea like who it was, and they were going on this wild goose chase, and they were assuming a whole bunch of stuff, which I was like, yeah, government.
That seems wrong.
It was actually really interesting because we're gonna get to this guy, but I want to note they're claiming the guy who supposedly did this that they're claiming, his name is Bruce Edwards Ivins. And it's just interesting what ended up happening to him. But I was listening because there were several different sources that I looked at. There was a Netflix documentary on this.
Oh, there was?
A
Oh, cool.
PBS documentary on it.
Bill
and then
Gates.
there was a book that I was looking at.
Right, that's Bill Gates. PBS.
I don't know. I know it's the Public Broadcasting Services. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm probably so wrong.
Some-
Don't listen to me.
I don't know.
I'm wrong.
I couldn't tell you. But yeah, so those those were the sources I kind of looked at.
Mm-hmm.
And with PBS, they actually interviewed this lady who like worked on the case.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know if she's like an attorney for the FBI or something like that. But she said one of the most ridiculous things that I probably ever heard like a lawyer say or some investigative individual. And it was just, well, don't look at the facts. If you just look at the entire situation as a whole, then all the evidence is going to push like this guy, Bruce Ivins. He was the one who did it. And I was no joke. She's like, you just got to look at everything. And they kind of said the same thing again in the Netflix documentary.
Yeah.
They're like, you're trying to look at the Mona Lisa with a microscope.
Yeah.
Don't focus on the evidence. If you look at everything together, then you'll actually get the big picture. And I started laughing too because,
What a sorry excuse to try to like pin it on somebody.
oh, for real though. And the guy also, like, in the Netflix documentary, he's like, yeah, it's all circumstantial. And I was like, hold the fucking phone right there. You just admitted it's all circumstantial evidence.
Yeah.
You don't got anything solid. That's why the facts really matter.
Right.
And you know, it got really super convenient for them at the end because, you know, it's all crazy.
Well,
You'll know.
I'm sure at the end they were probably just like, I mean, I don't know. It's like when you're taking an exam or something.
Yeah.
You know, you just once you get to the end, you're just like, oh, I don't care what the answers are anymore. Like, I just want to be done with this. If it's like a 200 question exam, unless obviously if it counts a lot toward your whatever, that's besides the point. But I'm just saying, like,
Right.
I'm sure at that point it was easier for them to find somebody that to like put the blame on rather than like continue to try and find somebody else. You know, just pin out on this one guy and call it good. Let's just
Right.
be done. So then they stacked all the evidence upon him and just said, yeah, don't, like you were saying, don't look at the microscope, look at the broad picture. It's like
Exactly.
stupid.
And I guess technically I got a little ahead of myself, but one thing to like note when this first happened and when people first got the letter, because there were several letters that were sent out, and it was somebody like admitting it was a terror attack. The first thing, because this happened right after 9/11, the first thing everybody was jumping to is it's Al Qaeda. It's it's this foreign terrorist group who's gonna get it.
Oh my goodness.
And so George Bush was immediately on the case. He came out with like this statement, and he's like, "We're gonna get him."
Oh my goodness.
The sentiment that he's really trying to push was, "We're gonna get these terrorist bastards overseas," and
Right.
the whole
Yeah,
thing.
especially right after 9/11, everyone's rooting for him. Like, oh yeah, we're gonna get the terrorists.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
for sure, they're gonna be all about it. You know.
For sure. George Bush actually, right after the 9/11 terror attacks, and he was trying to be all like tough on war and all of that stuff and on terrorism. He actually had one of the highest approval ratings in like presidential history.
Yeah, dude, natural, like crazy, not natural, but obviously like disasters like that, they bring people together so much. It's insane. Like, I don't know. It's just crazy. 9/11, I mean, that's why so many people think it was fake, you know, that it was staged, which I'm not going to share my opinion on that, but I think it's just, I think you'd be hard pressed to find like a time that didn't bring the American people together in the last 20 years like that, like last 30 years, you know. It's crazy because everyone band together and they had one universal like focus, take them down. You know, they mess with us. Okay, time to mess with them. Let's put all of our like frustrations with each other to the side, frustrations with other people. Let's just focus on that. For sure, it's going to bring the president's rating up, approval rating for sure. No, yeah.
Don't quote me on this. I don't have like the facts in front of me, but I feel like just from like what I've read in the past, I think he had like a 95 to 98% like
Whoa.
approval rating. Like people were pissed, and when
Dang.
George Bush was like being super tough on this and talking a lot, then yeah, people got really into it.
That's crazy, dude. I wonder. I'm gonna take a peek real quick because I'm curious to see if that. Because I bet that's probably the highest approval rating.
I would say so. I mean, it didn't last his entire presidency,
Right.
but like it was pretty up there. I was surprised. Definitely fact check me on that. I'd hate to give misinformation. That's why I'm gonna put an asterisk next to that, saying like, yeah, I think it was this. Yeah.
Yeah, don't take anything too seriously that we say, or
Yeah.
at least that I say for sure. I'm a clown sometimes.
Just like always, I recommend people do their own research, find out because, yeah, you know, not only did people die from the terror attacks in this, but as I'm going to get to later, the FBI bullied somebody into killing themselves.
Of course.
Yeah, they literally did, which was insane. And it's just, and they knew what they were doing from the get-go too, when they pulled this off. And you know what? I'll say allegedly killed somebody because I have to. Technically,
Just like Epstein allegedly killed himself.
yeah, about. But for sure. So anyway, just to kind of get the ball rolling and actually, instead of me talking about like a lot of random stuff, I'll tell you like a little bit more of what was going on.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so we received the FBI finally received like the sample, and they were looking into it. And then there was another attack. And so once they started looking at these different attacks, and they actually got started getting the letters from the terrorist who was taking all of this credit. You know, Al Qaeda actually tried to take credit for this, but
Oh, I'm sure.
through some lab work, the FBI didn't have any, they didn't really have a lab that they could use. And so they used this other lab that was run by the Department of Defense. It was originally built to kind of create bioweapons, except I think it was after World War II, we kind of shut the whole thing down. So the facility that they were actually using and to kind of look at all this stuff, and that they were kind of looking at vaccines and trying to make a vaccine is USAMRIID, which is the U.S. Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases. And
That's a mouthful.
It really is.
Good thing they have like a little acronym for it.
Oh, yeah. And so that was actually partially how they were able to figure out the first, like, because at first they had the idea that it was Al Qaeda, right?
Right.
It wasn't until they took it to USAMRIID and had some testing done where they found out this wasn't some foreign attack that came from somewhere else. This was a homegrown terror attack. Like,
which is interesting. How would they test that to find out that it was here in the U.S.?
So there's two things that they actually found. The first is they were kind of being a little bit of like arrogant douchebags. They were like, only here in the United States will you have the technology to do what you did to this virus. Or this bacteria, sorry.
Oh.
That was part of it. Yeah, it's really interesting. When I saw the Netflix and the PBS documentary, like,
yeah,
there's a little bit of USA.
Yeah. That's one. Yeah.
But yeah, they were claiming only the United States would be able to convert that into a powder. And then they noticed it was also kind of I don't want to, like a descendant of the Ames strain, which is something that is kept at USAMRIID. And very few like individuals or organizations actually have
like access to it.
Exactly. They don't really have a lot of access. It's a very controlled thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a freaking infectious, deadly disease.
Yeah.
And so when they found that out, they ended up getting a lot more pressure because, you know, George Bush is there saying that they're going to figure it out. They're going to get whoever did this. And so there's a lot of pressure there. And then, you know, everybody's American hero, the best of the best, Robert Mueller. He's the guy who's in charge of the FBI at this time. And I mean, if anybody's been paying attention the last couple of years, he's definitely a piece of crap.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's not the best guy. But he was putting a lot of pressure on people to get this solved. I mean, especially after like 9/11 and those attacks, they want to put on like this super strong front.
Yeah, like almost a facade of strength. You know, they don't want to let the American people know, like, oh shoot, that was bad. You know, and now we have somebody killing people with anthrax.
Exactly. It's like, yes, we solved the building crisis, the 9/11 crisis. We know who did it. Let's go get him. And then now it's like, we have no clue who this person is.
Right.
Who did this. And I don't know. The whole thing was just interesting. So they kind of went along with their investigation, trying to figure out who it was. And the first person like they really focused on and were like, this is our person of interest. This is who we want to focus on is Stephen Hatfield. And so this guy just absolutely got like screwed over by the FBI because there was a group of agents who were working on this who were just straight up like, nope, this is our guy, regardless of what any evidence says, regardless of this. Like there was people who were kind of split up on the whole thing. They're like, I don't necessarily think this guy did it. I don't think the evidence is conclusive enough for that. And they were just straight up like, nope, he did it.
Wow.
We're going to frame him. And so
And was this still going on after they pinned the other guy?
Well, they haven't even looked at the other guy yet.
Oh shit.
They started off with this guy, and they were all ready to throw this guy under
Put
the
him
bus.
put him on a cross, huh?
Yeah. And so they kept saying out there in the news too, they're like, yeah, we got the guy. We know who it is. We got him.
And how soon after was that?
Oh, shoot.
Couple months, years?
He became the focus. It was a couple years in April of 2005.
Okay.
And
And
he-
that all happened in 2001?
Yeah.
And they supposedly caught the other guy in 2008.
Yep.
So even then, it took them 4 years to find a suspect.
Exactly.
Wow.
And I mean, you got old, evil eye Robert Mueller breathing down your neck all the time.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, there's definitely a lot of pressure there to get
Just
somebody.
like find someone, yeah.
Oh yeah, this whole investigation was botched in my opinion, allegedly.
Allegedly botched.
Yeah. And so you had this guy who he was followed around. So even before like they named him as a person of interest, they started following this guy around. They started doing their FBI tactics. Instead of doing like actual investigation, they were more focused on intimidation. And so this guy, they started to announce like, yeah, this is our guy in 2005. And they kept him as their guy till 2007. And then they
Wow.
threw in this other guy around 2008.
So randomly, like a year later, they somehow have enough evidence to figure out, oh yeah, this is the guy that did it, even though they've been trying to pin it on this other guy for 6 years.
Yes, sir.
Wow, that is ridiculous.
Your tax dollars. Yeah, the whole thing was it kind of, I thought it was crazy. It kind of blew my mind when I found that out. That, and they were obviously even told the guy, they told Stephen Hatfield like, no, like we're gonna follow you and tail you, and that they did. They followed him like almost all the time.
Wow.
And I think there was a report of the FBI actually ran over his foot at one point.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, absolutely insane. And I think this whole story is pretty crazy. And, you know, even more like nobody knows about this.
Uh-huh.
You know, I tried talking to my grandma to see if she knew anything about this. She just knew it happened. And I was like, well, what scared you more, 9/11 or this? She's like, 9/11, definitely. And I was like, how?
Yeah.
Like that happened all the way in New York City, and it was one day. This has been going on for a couple weeks now, and people are receiving this deadly virus in the mail.
Right, that's terrifying. You know what's interesting too is and I don't know if you might hit on this, but just kind of quick thought. It's crazy that it seems like it was overshadowed like in every aspect because of 9/11, and then 2008. What happened in 2008? Market crashed.
That's true.
So everybody was like so not focused on all that stuff in between. So it went from the US going from 9/11 trying to rebuild, and then they find this guy, boom, market crash. Perfect time to say, oh, that was him. No one's going to bat an eye at it because they're all focused on, oh shit, I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose my house.
Right? It's just the whole thing was just all a little too convenient
Right.
for me. And, you know, if you watch any of these two documentaries, I recommend the PBS one more just because, you know, Netflix wants to get views. And so they dramatize things to a different level. Like I was telling you a little bit earlier, like they tried to make this other guy, Bruce Ivins, look like the biggest sexual deviant there was. Like he had these insane inner demons. He had split personalities. Like,
what? I wonder if I don't know, like is there any validity to that? Does it hold any ground that he was some sort of like sexual deviant, split personalities, anything like that you know of?
I mean, I'll kind of touch a little bit more on that when we talk about like Bruce Ivins, because, you know, if you're talking about out of the whole things, like, yeah, the people who got attacked, like, I am so sorry for them. It feels so bad. Like nobody should ever die like that, because
Right.
it is not a good way to go. It's a painful way, but with like in regards to the investigation, because they talked about to a few different people, the FBI did, but Stephen Hatfield and Bruce Ivins just got absolutely shafted. Like the FBI just screwed them over so bad. And also like during that time when like Stephen Hatfield was getting followed by the FBI, um, they were trying to do other things. Like they were trying to talk to his family, get them to kind of like turn against him, friends, coworker,
And was he married?
I think he was. I'm pretty sure he was. I know he. Yeah, I think he is.
Okay.
He had like a kid and stuff.
Okay. So at one point, possibly was married, but he does have a family.
Yeah,
Okay.
I believe so. But yeah, they tapped his phone. They were going through his email constantly. They were looking at anything they could possibly use to nail this guy,
Yeah.
which, you know, in my opinion, in a legitimate investigation, which I'm not convinced this was,
Yeah.
you know, you would definitely do a lot more investigating like that for your person of interest. But I mean, you know, you named this guy in 2005, like as your kind of person of interest. And, you know, all the way until 2007 after that, like, you think in about 2 years that you would eventually just be like, well, shit, we haven't found anything.
Right. Just let him be. Yeah.
Exactly. But, you know, these guys, like, these FBI agents who were just convinced it was him had, like, the biggest hard on for him. They were just like, you know, this is our guy, blah, blah, blah. And in the investigation, good old Robert Mueller ended up taking those guys off the case and putting some new guys on there. And that's when he ended up getting exonerated. And something else that led up to it, and this threw the FBI off the most, because their whole thing is about like intimidating. And Stephen Hatfield, he ended up holding a press conference, and in there he declared his innocence, and he was like, no, like, I did not do this. I did not commit these crimes. And that threw the FBI off pretty hard, because here they are trying to seem so big and strong and trying to get this guy to confess. And now he's saying in public, letting the entire US or even the world, who's ever watching, know, like, no, guys, like, I'm innocent. Exactly. Yeah. And since he went on the attack, like, the FBI just didn't know what to do. They were like struggling really hard. Whenever they'd give like press conference or interviews, the press would kind of hammer him on that. And they just would not want to touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Dang. So where is he? Where is he? I don't know. If you want to continue, I'm just curious. Where is he now? Like,
ooh, I don't know. I didn't really look into what he was doing now. I know he ended up, because they caused him so much grief and all of
like
the
suing
defamation.
him?
Oh yeah, he sued the government. He got a pretty heavy. He got a pretty good sum of money.
Oh, I'm sure. That's like when people are like falsely incarcerated, and then they find new evidence, whatever, and exonerate them. Like, and then they sue. They get so much money. It's ridiculous. It's not ridiculous. It's good. It's good for them. They deserve it.
The whole thing's just insane, because the government's so stupid.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. The FBI bungled this information. It is one of this. This is one of the most expensive like investigations in FBI history. They spent millions of dollars on this, and one of the things, I guess, just taking a small like side off.
Yeah.
When they were investigating Ivan's, they ended up draining an entire pond because they were convinced he had an underwater lab.
What?
Yeah. So they spent all this money to drain a pond. And then something else that was kind of funny was, out of everything, once they drained the pond, they found this box. And they sent the box to USAMRIID to figure out what it was. And good old Robert Mueller was pissed when he found out it was just a turtle trap.
What? Oh, that's awesome.
He was so pissed. I wish I could have seen it.
Yeah, that would have been sweet.
But
just a turtle trap. Oh man, can you imagine? They probably air freighted that. Cost them so much money to get it where it needed to go, and testing. Like, oh, that's ridiculous.
Oh, they spent so much freaking money.
So much money. That's ridiculous.
Just to drain a pond. think you have the underwater lab in this box, and then it end up being a turtle trap. Oh,
Yeah, that's crazy.
it was crazy.
Did it
But
have any turtles in it?
unfortunately, I didn't see any.
Nah,
I wish I would have
bad
known.
trap. It's a bad trap.
Basically, thing was just buried at the bottom of the pond.
Maybe he put anthrax in it just for them to open it.
Yeah, the white powder.
Yeah, the white powder.
Got all wet and turned into it. Yeah, 10 out of 10. This brilliant scientist.
Yeah, it's so dumb. Like how like unfeasible is that to think, like, especially such a high caliber of like a what's the word, like an association like the FBI, to think, reasonably think, that there's a underwater lab. Like that's like some movie shit.
That's
you
what I
know,
was
like
thinking.
like a cartoon. Like, dude, they have an underwater lab. Like, we have to drain it to find out what's inside. Like, that's ridiculous. Can you imagine being the FBI and truly believing that that's legit? That's a joke. It's a joke.
Oh my god. I just looked up how much they actually spent on the whole thing.
Yeah. What?
$320 million.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. And they probably didn't even find the right person.
In my opinion, they didn't. In my opinion, they haven't. They allegedly got the guy. And they'll tell you they got the guy. And all the documentaries, the FBI is like, we got him, boys.
Clowns.
This was him. But no, you didn't have the evidence. You still didn't have the evidence.
Jeez, what a waste of time and money. Can you imagine having a quarter of that money?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'd be set for life.
Basically.
Yeah, I'd be set.
There's your Social Security.
Yeah, for real. Like, I would just pay off my house and then buy a bunch of other property, get that residual income. I'm set, bro.
Easy.
And then I'd start sending anthrax to people, allegedly. Not really. Don't come after me.
No, it's just a joke. Everything tongue in cheek.
Yes.
So that's basically about it for Stephen Hatfield. Now we hit around right after they drop Stephen Hatfield, they start looking into Bruce Ivins, who worked at USAMRIID, and he was one of the guys who.
Oh, so why did they hop onto Stephen Hatfield first? Like, what made them think that he was the main suspect?
Oh, that's actually a good question. I didn't really go too much into it, but when they found out it all came from kind of the same the same strain, the AIM strain, they started looking at all the different facilities that have access to the AIM strain or have some sort of variant to it. And I think it's really interesting, because USAMRIID had one. And they submitted a sample along with a whole bunch of different other labs that submitted a sample.
Yeah.
And this is actually going to come up a little bit later when, Congress also shows a little bit that they're like, yeah, you guys kind of botched the investigation.
Even Congress, wow.
Well, yeah, you have I'll get to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But all these different labs had to send a sample, and they didn't really have too much luck with the samples, but they just kind of decided hey, this guy has access to it. He seems like he would have the skill set to be able to, because the strain wasn't always in a powder,
right?
It had to be converted into a powder. So they were like, okay, yeah, this guy's he's able to convert it into a powder, and he can do it.
Okay.
It's interesting because with both of these people, both with Stephen Hatfield and Bruce Ivins, they kept claiming they had all the expertise and they knew how to do this, and they worked in a lab, they could definitely get this stuff done.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, you work in a top tier medical military laboratory that specializes in biodefense and looking at different things like that. It seems like it'd probably be a lot harder to sneak out a deadly.
Oh, for sure. Can you imagine the surveillance they have in those places? Oh, it must be out of this world. There's no way somebody would be able to do something like that without red flagging something. That's crazy, huh?
And it's even crazier because they're they have the expertise, and even though they have access at work, they were also convinced that somebody could do it at home. But if you were to look at like all the engineering and all the stuff that went into it, it just isn't possible to do it at home. Like
I'm
you
sure.
would need, none of these men had the lab equipment at their homes to be able to continue doing this. And so
Right.
really they're just going off of the fact like, oh, these people have access to the AIM strain. They're the ones who did it.
Well, and that's probably what, hundreds of people that also have access to it
Yeah,
with all the other laboratories and employees and stuff. Like,
probably. I don't remember the exact number. I know at the USAMRID they had, because they had like the specific bottle. They were convinced like it came from this bottle. And so there was only 12 people who had access for that at USAMRID, and you know, Bruce Ivins being one of them.
right.
And he was actually one of the main consultants on the case even before then.
Really?
Yeah. And so it made it super convenient when they were like, well, shit, Stephen Hatfield, we just don't have enough to get him.
Yeah. Who's it
But
going to be now?
who's been involved with us the entire time?
Right.
We have Ivins. But yeah, they ended up doing some different stuff to Ivins eventually. They did like a search warrant. All of his coworkers liked the guy.
Mm-hmm.
He was a little strange, but they're like, yeah, he was funny. I mean, he's strange, you know, a lot of things.
Yeah.
They're kind of awkward like that.
Yeah.
And he did have like a weird obsession with a sorority. I think it was like Kappa Gamma or however it goes. You know what I'm talking about? And you know, he had a record of like breaking in to try and steal their code book one time.
What?
Yeah.
That's kind of a weird obsession.
And so they caught him doing that, but Netflix will exaggerate it and be like, well, look at this. Maybe.
He had a hard on for this sorority. Jeez, I can't even speak.
Basically. And they're like, look at all these emails he sent.
Jeez.
And I just kind of sat there and I was like, dang, Netflix, it's amazing that you made it this far. But it's even more ironic because they don't mention in the documentary anything about the Congress like oversight committee who were checking to make sure like the whole thing was valid and
Yeah.
that it was realistic.
Well, because then they wouldn't have. Well, I guess that would give them more content. No,
it would, but
I was gonna say it wouldn't give them a story, but that would be a better story in my opinion.
How can you sell sexual deviancy though?
Yeah, that's true.
And so they were just literally hammering this idea on Netflix, but the FBI took that, and it probably doesn't help. They had a whole bunch of FBI agents on there that they were interviewing.
Yeah.
And so of course you're gonna get a little extra, but so the FBI took all of that, raided his house, didn't find anything. They drained his pond.
Yeah. Oh, so
couldn't find anything.
This is Ivan?
Yeah, Ivan was the one with the pond.
Oh, okay. I thought that was Shirtliff, whatever his first name is, or Hatfield. Sorry,
yeah.
not Shirtliff.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't make it super clear. I've been just kind of bouncing around a little bit, but
You're good.
Yeah. So they focused on this guy. And he wasn't a violent person. He was never known to be violent. But he did struggle with a little bit of depression and some other stuff like that.
Yeah.
And before they even really named him as like a person of interest and like focused on him and wanted him to kind of know, they met with like a psychiatrist or a psychologist, a mental health professional, and we're like, hey, so we want to go after this guy. This is what we got. This is what we're thinking. We know he's a little bit like he struggled with this in the past. Do you think it'd be okay if we could do this? Can we do this? And well, what they ended up saying was like, don't do it.
Right.
You could definitely push this guy over the edge by doing it. And
Dang.
the people that they were interviewing, or not interviewing, the people who were talking to the psychiatrist, when they heard that, they weren't exactly disheartened. Allegedly, they were happy about the whole thing.
No, of course.
And so,
it keeps a person of interest in the spotlight.
Oh, for sure, definitely keeps them in there. And if we want to throw in a little bit of conspiracy, it would be a little all too convenient if he did something after they all kind of put all that pressure on him.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And if somebody with like mental issues, you know, it just gives them more ammunition to pin it on that guy.
Oh yeah, and they'll use that too. And so they ended up going more, I guess, into him. They started leaning really hard, and they were just like, they pulled him into questioning. And you know, I feel bad for this guy because you know, you like to think the FBI and the police are your friend. No,
Right.
you don't tell them jack shit without a lawyer.
Yeah.
And
Stay
so-
silent. Information is ammunition.
Exactly. And what he should have done is whenever he talked to him, he should not have said a single thing to him without a lawyer. He should have got a lawyer immediately, but he didn't. He trusted the government, which is not a good idea.
It's not recommended.
No. He just kind of leaned into it even more, and he was like, okay, I'm going to help you guys, and just gave him more and more information. And they, in turn, took that information and were trying to use it against him. And they ended up getting a grand jury search warrant.
Dang.
And so they looked at his house. They were able to go through all of his messages and everything. And, you know, they didn't find what they were really looking for. They never found any, like, oh, we got him, like, nail him to the coffin type of evidence, which is crazy. But it's actually kind of sad what ended up happening. They hammered him and they harassed him so much, because that's what it was. There was no investigating at this point. This was just harassment, and they knew what they were doing. July 29th of 2008, Bruce Ivins committed suicide.
Damn, dude.
The government, the FBI, even after knowing from the psychiatrist or psychologist not to go too hard on this guy and to kind of...
They just pushed him to the edge.
Yeah, they intentionally pushed him to the edge.
So messed up.
And the guy ended up killing himself. He took a bunch of Tylenol, and, you know, I shouldn't be saying this, but after you start to overdose on Tylenol after 7 hours, you're basically kind of screwed. You have 7 hours to get the help you need.
Yeah.
Generally, some people are different.
Yeah.
But after 7 hours, like, you're going to die.
That's
unless
the
you
nail in
can
the
get
coffin.
some like emergency transplants. But it's just several different organs you're going to need to transplant. It's going to ruin your liver. It's going to ruin your kidneys.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, technically, like, we're not supposed to know this.
Right.
Not to give anybody ideas, but like, that's what ended up happening. And he ended up officially passing away August 6th.
So when did he do that initially?
It was about, or I take that back. August 6th is when the FBI came out and were like, we got him. This was the guy, 100% without a doubt. He killed himself on 2009, and it was just a couple days after. And it is one of the most painful ways you can go, for sure, but very effective. Like, after 7 hours, people are just there like, we can't help you.
Yeah, it's pretty much done.
And it messes up.
It's just so sad.
Oh, yeah. And the FBI, they did it.
Yeah.
They pushed him to the edge to where he did this. And it all worked out so conveniently, because now that he's dead, he can't defend himself.
Yeah, he can't defend himself.
They don't need to do a trial. And so they just announced, like, nope, this was our guy. We got him. And, yeah, it's a game over.
That's ridiculous. 'Cause then they probably use that as like just like ammunition toward, oh, well, if he didn't do it, why did he kill himself?
Exactly. That's what they
Which
said.
is just so shitty. Like,
he had a guilty conscience.
yeah, guilty conscience. So he killed himself, but we've also been harassing him for the last 3 years. Like, that's ridiculous. Or 2 years, however long it was.
Yeah, they were pretty bad at this. And
Yeah.
this is Robert Mueller's FBI. I mean, we still know the great good investigating they're able to do nowadays. I mean, you know, when they were doing the investigation into Russiagate and all of that.
Right.
Just 10 out of 10, the best work I've ever seen. If you ever get a chance to read that report, definitely recommend. Boring as hell, but like,
Good read.
government sucks.
Allegedly.
Oh, allegedly.
Yes.
Yeah.
This
Good
is
old
all alleged.
evil eye, Robert Mueller.
Yeah. Sauron.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
From Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, something that was interesting is after the whole thing was done, um, you know, our politicians, they're usually like one of the last ones who ever want to do stuff. I mean, they're pretty lazy.
Yeah.
But
Dude, I think I'd be a good politician.
you think so?
I'd fit in well. I'm just lazy as hell.
I don't know. It's a pretty easy job.
I'd also have to be pretty sleazy though. Well, I hope I'm not very sleazy.
Who needs morals and values
Yeah,
when you
right.
work for the government?
When you're making hundreds of $1,000s a year, who cares, right?
Basically, you get to spend all the money you want. I mean,
Yeah, and go to a little island.
basically.
Allegedly.
So what ended up happening is, Congress they weren't impressed. They weren't super convinced. And so they had the Government Accountability Office run an investigation. They kind of hired a third party like group to kind of investigate this,
Right.
and to make sure that everything was done right. And so what ended up happening, we finally got the long-awaited report from the Government Accountability Office, and they ended up finding that the FBI's exhaustive, cutting-edge attempt to trace the killer with matches of genetic mutations of anthrax samples at the time lacked precision, consistency, and adequate standards.
And that's from the third party investigation.
Exactly. This was a 77-page report. And it basically was given the final word on the FBI's 7-year investigation.
Wow.
Known as Anthrax. I guess that was the exact code name or investigative name. Anthrax.
That's weird.
They're so
Anthrax.
creative. 10 out of 10 work. So that's basically kind of a general overview. There's definitely a lot of other stuff that you can go in. I'd totally recommend anybody who's interested, watch the documentary.
Right.
Watch the Netflix one too. And then read the book that I recommended too.
What was that book again?
The book was, hold on. It was the 2001 Anthrax Deception.
Anthrax Deception. Okay.
And so
I'll put it on my reading list.
100%. But just watch those two documentaries.
Okay.
And so my biggest question at the end of all of this, because in either documentary or in the book, I just never really got a clear motive.
Right.
If Stephen Hatfield is the one who did it, why?
Right.
Nobody can answer that. If Bruce Ivins did it, why? Still not a clear thing. It's not because he was a sexual deviant who was obsessed with sororities and whatever the heck.
Well, even if he was, what motive does that bring to the table to just start sending anthrax to people?
Right. Especially news organizations and politicians.
Right.
What do they have to do with that?
Yeah, definitely. It was somebody that was angry with the way things are being run.
Exactly. So my biggest question is, who benefits from all of this? And that's when we dive into conspiracy theory type of thing. And we might just have to save that for another time, or I don't know. I'll just leave everybody with that question. Why? Why would somebody want to do this unless they're trying to create fear, which is the reason behind a terrorist attack? But what motive would Bruce Ivins have, or Stephen Hatfield? I mean, both of these people, by all accounts, weren't somebody super intense. They weren't. They're not your classic emo boys where they're just like, oh my god, I hate life and everything. Everything sucks. They weren't like that at all. They were just kind of normal scientists. And the closest theory I got, because Bruce Ivins was working on a vaccine for anthrax.
Yeah.
The closest anybody got to an idea is, okay, let's infect people with anthrax, so then I have an excuse to test my vaccine.
Huh.
But that's still not satisfying. So, send in whatever you think the reason is behind it, and look into it for sure, and let me know if you think the the government really had enough evidence for this. Because I think there's a deeper conspiracy theory. Because
For
the
sure.
only one who really benefited from this was the FBI. I mean, $320 million.
Yeah, that's crazy. I wonder if all of that actually went to the investigation.
Oh, hell no. I would love to see a balance sheet.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. You send me an invoice, FBI.
Basically. They're already going to arrest us next week. We're
Yeah.
screwed.
Yeah. We didn't kill ourselves. Not
didn't.
allegedly this time. For real, we didn't.
We had nothing to do with anthrax. I have no idea what it was.
Yes, me neither. I am just here for the party.
Biology is not my, or microbiology is not my specialty. Can't say I've ever taken a class on it. But yeah, that's about it, guys.
I did take a class on microbiology, but
Oh,
it was a general, so don't worry about it. I allegedly took a class.
allegedly, yes.
Allegedly took a class. I don't know, Brandon. This sounds like we might need a part 2. Listen to some more of these conspiracies. I'd like to get into some of these ideas that people have come up with.
Yeah, for sure. I think it definitely warrants a part 2. But that's it for this episode, guys. I hope you have a great rest of your day and keep it spooky.
Keep it spooky.
All right, just some final thoughts. If you have any questions or any suggestions about the show, please email us at shadow.valleypod@thedogenetwork.com. And I'll look forward to go through your emails and to kind of see what kind of feedback you guys have. And you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you.